Hello HEMA friends and welcome to this new video. Today we are going to review the Fechtbuch Fabian. Now, funny enough, there is too much things to say about this book for a single video, actually, because simply there are so many parts which are useful in these books which are not even easy to resume to an extent. So let's start by saying that this book is useful both for the neophyte, which actually starts even a club maybe, so you are by yourself and you want to start a club. But even if you are an experienced fencer, especially at the intermediate level, I would say, this is one of the best books that you can find around, actually. And this is because on this book you may find a variety of teachings which span from even buying the equipment that you need for the practice. So, as I said, it is useful for the very beginner which even wants to start a club by themselves. Or you can find practical advices in relation to, for instance, like how to fight certain kind of opponents, the behavior of certain fencers, and how they act in relation to the way in which they studied or practiced or whatever. You can find hints on training itself at various levels actually, so you find hints on footwork, you find hints on tactics, and so on and so on. So this book is both, again, useful for the neophyte and the experienced fencer. And you can find insights in it in both of the cases. You can find also very good advices, for instance, for an experienced fencer. Like, I bought this book, I didn't receive it for free. I bought it because I thought that I could need information in it. And like, I fence since 14 years, basically. And in fact, I found a lot of useful hints, especially in the like practical fencing part, which is a huge, like a consistent part of this manual. The practical fencing part is the one about tactics, etc., which I previously mentioned. And in that part, for instance, you can find whatever is useful right now in our modern context of sparring and even tournaments, etc. Participating to tournaments, competitions, whatever. To give you an idea on how the manual is structured, you find, first of all, a brief introduction, of course. Then you have a section which is related to basics and fundamentals, which is useful to understand things about footwork, physical practice, etc. And then to introduce you to the basics of fencing, such as cuts, thrusts, parries, and so on and so on. Also following the Lichtenauer tradition in terms of terminology. In this section you will also find important principles explained, such as Vor, Nach, Indes and Fullen with it, for instance. Then you have a section about main longsword techniques, in which you find such techniques explained. For instance, you will find the Scheitelau, the Schielau, the Winden, and so on and so on. Then there is the section about practical fencing, in which you learn how to test the opponent, how to approach the opponent, and, for instance, how to attack, something which is rare to find in the historical manuals, for instance. This is like one side of the manual. So it is a practical manual, actually, to develop even a club, to develop your fencing as a single individual, and to start training, actually, from the very beginning, from point zero. But you can also refine your own ideas in regards of how to engage the opponent in it. So the other side of, on the other side of the spectrum, let's say, you can also find a lot of historical stuff into this book. There are several manuals. You can find, for instance, the manual like The Art of Fencing with the Master of Johannes Lecuckner. You can find the longsword according to Hans Lichtenauer, of course. The Speyer Codex, which was pretty interesting to me because I never had the occasion to study it before. So there is a ton of interesting stuff. Plus, these things are connected, which I love. Simply because, like, Martin grown up as a German longsword fencing fencer, let's say. And you can see it throughout the book. Also, his way of explaining fencing, it is related also to this kind of particular tradition. And you can find what I really enjoy, actually, which I mentioned in my previous video, the HEMA Manifesto 2025, in which I talk about what I will see in the future in HEMA. And I will say that this book represents pretty well what I was talking about. So there is a lot of modern knowledge in it, which is easier to understand for us as 21st century people. For instance, advices on tactics, etc., explained in a way which is easy to understand. But we also find the terms of the old masters, such as the Schillau or the Zwerchau or whatever, so to identify technical actions, even to a deeper level than simple cuts, etc. So this is beautiful to me. Also, you can, I would say, find other aspects related to, the historical manuals per se, in a sense that you find the interpretation of the various gloss or whatever of made by Martin. So you are able to read about techniques, tactics, footwork, etc. Then you go to the manual section and you find also the hints from which certain ideas may come, or you find the, generally speaking, the reconnection between modern concepts, re-elaborated modern concepts, and the historical source, which is something that I find beautiful, personally speaking. It is precisely in line with what I think HEMA should be. So I talked enough about this book, I will say. As I mentioned, very important points of this book. It is useful for the beginner, it is useful for the experienced fencer. You should buy it if you are interested to improve your fencing, period. It is relatively pricey to an extent for a book, but it represents what the book contains, so it is completely worth the price because it is dense of useful informations. And it may be also the manual which could start like the new age of HEMA in a sense, because it will be extremely useful for new clubs. It will help developing and growing new clubs. And this is something extremely important for the community in its entirety. So if you have like friends or you know people around the globe which are starting HEMA from the very beginning, which are starting a club, you should advise them to go for this book because it is ideal to let them start the practice. And I'm saying it as a Fiore fencer, which like I would have loved to have a version of this book in Fiore terms. Maybe I will do something similar in the future. Who knows? I hope so. But like for now, this is the best book around to start practicing HEMA and to refine your qualities as a fencer. Very good, people. I hope you will find this video useful in some ways. Thanks for watching as always. Remember to check my Patreon, a link in the description if you want to see more of my content. And as always, see you next time.